let me begin by saying no parent should ever have to bury their child. It's not the natural order of things. And also, let me be very clear, the city of Arlington is responsible for Bakari's death. Bakari's death was 100% preventable. We're here today because the city of Arlington decided to ignore the very safety rules to protect. And as many of you may already know, quality was 60 of the 100 days the splash pad was open in 2021. Now I'd like to turn it over to Stephen Stewart to discuss the litigation and answer some of your questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Stewart. I'm with the Stewart Law Firm in Austin, Texas. This morning, we, on behalf of the parents of young Bakari, filed suit against the city of Arlington, Texas, related to Bakari's tragic, untimely, and very preventable wrongful death. We've provided a copy of the important to the parents of Bakari is public awareness regarding this tragedy. The parents of Bakari do want provided some general information about the Naegleria fowleri amoeba. This brain-eating amoeba is often found in warm, freshwater lakes, rivers, and streams. However, this brain-eating amoeba can also be found in poorly maintained swimming pools and amusement splash pads, just as the one that exists here at Don Misenhimer Park. Admittedly, the city of Arlington failed to take the necessary steps and protocols and procedures required in order to maintain the water here in the splash pad. As you heard my co-counsel say, for the majority of the time this season, the splash pad water went untested most of the time. That's simply unacceptable. If a splash pad amusement is left untested, if the water is left untreated, bad things happen, just as they happened right here with the innocent Bakari Williams. It's important, we believe, for the city of Arlington to be held accountable by a jury. It's important for the city of Arlington to be made aware of 100% of all that's required to safely operate a public splash pad amusement such as the one that exists here today. For the parents of Bakari, it's important that anyone who undertakes the operation of an amusement splash pad, whether it's the city of Arlington, New York City, or Oklahoma City, you have to do what's right. You have to test your water. You have to treat your water. Keeping logs is important. Properly chlorinating and treating is a necessity. And if it doesn't happen, this occurs. I'd like to introduce Mr. Tariq Williams. He's the father of this innocent child, and he's got a few words he wanted to share today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. On behalf of our child, Bakari, we want to thank you for being here. On behalf of our family, our friends, we just want you all to know that Bakari was a loving, energetic, passionate, sweet, beautiful, innocent boy. He didn't deserve to die in this manner. For us, this case is about public awareness. The last thing that we want is for anyone else and their family to have to feel and go through what we're going through at this time.
Mr. Williams, thank you. We're happy to answer any questions you might have about our lawsuit that was filed this morning with the Tarrant County District Clerk's Office. We provided a copy of that in our press packet. Does anybody have any questions?
Certainly. The mayor here almost immediately admitted fault, admitted that it was on his watch. How does that approach change anything that you're going to do or your expectations as this suit moves forward?
Well, and I think that's a good question. I think most importantly, the loss that's been experienced by this family is unimaginable. We have state-mandated requirements to test water that exists under this pad right here, and these state mandates are serious. We all know that this amoeba has been around for a long time. We know of other instances where children have died in these very same similar type splash pads. Well, I appreciate the mayor owning it, as he said. This is about righteousness. It's about fairness. It's about justice. It's about accountability. We want to make sure that all the other splash pads, the one here at Don Misenhimer Park and the various other ones across the city, are adequately maintained, serviced, and the water's treated. So we look forward to having our day in court. This is a public amusement that the city decided to offer for the community. If you're going to offer this type of public amusement, you've got to do it right. It's too serious not to. It's life and death. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Mom, if Mom is willing to take questions. Firstly, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know part of your reason for the lawsuit and speaking out is to keep other parents from experiencing your same pain. A twofold question for you. Could you speak a little bit more to who your son was, your relationship to the park, and also symptoms, for other parents to be on the lookout for?
He was just a big ball of energy. He was a very loving big brother. Before Bakari passed in 2019, we actually lost another son to SIDS. But he's always just been a big ball of energy. It's just very quiet at home without him. Granted, I do have my youngest who's a 1-year-old, but he's not as active as, how a 3-year-old would be. So it's just a little bit more calmer. So it's a bit difficult to get used to that at home with how quiet it is. I forgot your other question. I'm sorry.
What were the initial symptoms?
Parents, the symptoms that he went through, what he faced in the hospital before September 11th.
His symptoms starting off literally the next morning after we had went to the park. He started off with a high fever. It was like 102 pushing 103. And then from there it's like he didn't want to eat, he didn't want to drink. All he wanted to do was lay down. So I automatically knew there was something wrong right there and then, because like I said, he's just a very, very active child. Bump his head, get right back up type. Like, it just, nothing can knock him down. So I knew something was serious then, because all he wanted to do was just stay in bed. Like, we had to kind of basically help him go to the bathroom because he was too weak to stand up. So if you go to a splash pad, all I can say, and you see those high fevers and you know your child is not moving as much as they normally are, then forget the urgent care center and just go straight to a hospital.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here and share about Bakari. I'm just curious as to whether you had any direct contact with the city of Arlington. When Bakari was sick or any time after that, and so what was that contact?
Yeah, that's a good question. Legally, the attorneys for the family have had direct communication with the city of Arlington. With this being a governmental entity, there are required notices that have to be provided for claimants, for victims. We've provided that on behalf of the family. They've been communicated with. We've, of course, asked them to take significant steps to preserve evidence that we feel is relevant to the claim, to the case. They've been cooperative thus far.
Did they reach out at all when Bakari was ill, before he passed, or anything like that? In a time when they closed the splash pad because they became aware?
Go ahead.
Yes, I'll shed a little light on that. I myself, along with Tariq and Kayla, did have occasion to meet with Mayor Ross, city manager, and the head of Parks and Rec, which I think has already been reported what their comments were about this. And that was pretty much the extent of that. I think someone quoted Mayor Ross as owning it. And now we have to pursue all legal avenues to make sure that the family, first and foremost, that this never happens to another family. Another mother and father don't have to bury their child. And in the process, seeking, full compensation for this family, what they've had to go through and what they'll continue to go through. Yes, we did have brief conversations with them. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
When you talk about public awareness, what advice do you have to other families that not go to splash pads and ask questions? If so, how can a family find out what they need to know?
Yes, and this family loved taking their child here. This child loved coming here. It's an amusement that children really enjoy participating in. But, from a consumer standpoint, make calls to the city or whatever entity is in charge of maintaining, servicing the splash pad. Make sure that the water is treated. Make sure that whoever's in charge of maintaining and servicing these splash pads has the actual mandated logbooks showing that they went and tested the water. And this has got to be done daily. Not every now and then or just when you think about it. It's got to be done daily. So as consumers, I think the proper thing to do is just become aware. Before you let a child go play in a splash pad amusement like this, make a call. There's phone numbers right here on signs. Make sure. Get the information. Has this water been treated? Has this water been tested? Is it safe for my child to participate in this amusement? Yes, ma'am.
Questions. One, can you answer just how often your family came to the splash pad? How often you all played here?
In the leading weeks before he passed, we've only been like 3 times, twice in 1 week, and then I think 1 or 2 more times. But before then, we had been familiar with it before because he has a uncle who turned 5 or 6, and his birthday party was here. So it's like
One more question.
Yes.
Flipping through, I saw that you were asking for damages in more than $1 million. Can you guys expand on what? I know there are no amounts.
Certainly.
But if you expand on what you're looking for.
Our pleading requirements under the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure mandate that specific amount, and we did it very broad in the terms that we were seeking recovery for the unjustifiable loss that this family has experienced in excess of $1 million. But we've not put a specific number over and above that.
The city said they're keeping the splash pads closed until they can make sure that they are following the minimum safety and standards required by the county, required by the state, the bare minimum. Is there anything else you'd like to see in terms of changes to make sure this doesn't happen again if and when the splash pads reopen?
Certainly, that's a good question. I think the state mandates are very clear. You don't have to be a lawyer to read the requirements that you've got to test your water on a daily basis. And that wasn't done. The family is hopeful that this splash pad and all the other Arlington, Texas splash pad amusement very significant steps and strides in implementing written policies and procedures. There needs to be very detailed employee training about the proper methodologies to running, managing, servicing, and maintaining one of these amusement splashes. And we hope that the city of Arlington learns through this terrible, tragic mistake and in the future takes action to avoid things just like this from ever occurring again. We hope that happens. That's why we're doing what we're doing. To my knowledge, I think it's been reported that at this time they have not, but I don't know that. That's certainly something that we want to learn during the discovery process with the case, with the litigation. I want to talk to the employees that were over this splash pad. I want to talk to the supervisors of those employees that were maintained or that were charged with maintaining, servicing, testing, regulating the water, treating the water. I want to talk to all of those people, so we hope that those are going to be identified to us shortly.
Do you all live in Arlington or Fort Worth, or what's your?
We stay outside of Fort Worth, in Forest Hill.
I saw another question. Yes, sir.
Just real quick, so is it just in the city of Arlington, is it just this park that was neglected, or are you discovering that it was other water parks? How deep does it run?
You know, I think it runs pretty deep. I think it's a good question. I think it's not only this amusement splash pad, but others within the city as well. I think after this tragic event, the city very quickly, and righteously so, went and determined, hey, what have we done or not done at these amusement splash pads? And I think that, you know, it's been made public by the city of Arlington that they have failed this community and all the splash pads, not just this one.
And actually, if you go to their website, they have those documents that you can click on the links. We've gone through them. We're going to continue to go through them. But like I said, we know specifically 64 times out of 100, this one wasn't tested.
That's the majority of
and our F pads appear to be the same as far as specific number. Can't give that to you, but I invite you all to go to the website.
Cities that have that same practice, the negligence of testing the water, or is it just here isolated in Arlington?
We know that this isn't the first time this has occurred in the United States. We know that this is not the first time that this has occurred in the great state of Texas. I think when you have public, amusements like these splash pads, you just got to step up and do what's mandated by the state of Texas. They didn't do it. That's another reason we're here today is public awareness. We don't want any other mom and dad to go through what these great parents have gone through. We don't want another innocent child to die from this brain-eating amoeba. That's crazy coming out of my mouth. A brain-eating amoeba. A little chlorine, and this child would have been here today. It didn't happen. So we hope that this story becomes available and it spreads like wildfire. It's about saving kids' lives. Bottom line, plain and simple.
To expand off your point, I talked to the CDC last week. They said in their history of studying Naegleria fowleri, they've only found 2 cases that go back to a splash pad. It's Bakari's and one in Texas about a year ago.
Right.
Is there something about Texas, the environment, that makes it right for this amoeba to thrive? What have you found?
Well, my research reveals that this, amoeba likes, warm water. And, if you have a body of water, whether it's a pool or a splash pad that, doesn't have ample circulation, it doesn't have proper chemical care and treatment, this thing's here. But I think, maybe the weather might have something to do with it. We're a warm climate here in the southwestern part of the United States, but it can develop anywhere, even in, summertime, cold environments,